Hey everyone, and welcome to Almost Cancelled. I am Peter, that is Connor, and we are going to talk about Stargirl Season 1, Episode 2. It is called S.T.R.I.P.E. So, full spoilers for the episode as always. And I sort of stand by my statement that it felt like the first part of a two-parter last week, because this felt like the second part of a two-parter. Kind of fulfilling that little prophecy, which isn't a complaint. I'm actually happy with that. That's fine.
Yeah, I mean, no. you say prophecy. It was a reasonably predictable thing to happen, you know.
I went with a colourful word.
It was a bit flamboyant.
Anyway, so we start off with S.T.R.I.P.E. We start off with I mean, not that he's got that name yet. That's kind of a plot beat later on, is that Courtney kind of names him something because her sidekick needs a name, as she points out. So one of my favourite little things about this probably is that we get the montage of her making the outfit, right? She gets the idea of making the outfit. We need a mask to protect your loved ones. You know, it's funny. That's one of those points where we've heard it so many times in so many superheroes stories now. We've seen so many superhero movies and TV shows that it's right. That part makes sense. The one that always annoys me is when you can't tell the people you love to protect them. That one always annoys me because that doesn't make any sense. But okay, no, you have to wear a mask so the villains don't know who you are, so they can't go after people that you care about. That always made sense to me.
Yeah.
But we've heard it so many times now in shows and movies that I'm almost like, not cringing, but when he actually said the words, I was like, yeah, okay, we have to say this just to like get her to the point where she wants an outfit, right? I get it, but just quickly.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah. Regardless of how whatever. But anyway, I appreciate that when she goes to try and make her outfit, that she completely gets everything wrong at first. She ruins multiple sewing machines. She breaks the scissors. I appreciated that this 15-year-old doesn't know how to immediately just sew something flawlessly with it. No, I mean, if I had to, the suit should still look a bit shoddier than it does, but I'll let that slide because it's a TV show and we want to have the suit look good.
That's funny. I would have been able to sew something half competently at 15 with one of those machines, whereas right now I couldn't sew a button onto my shirt if I tried.
Yeah, I think I had one class one day where we used sewing machines, and
I had to do home ec for like 3 years in my school, and we used them on a regular basis. So I got to a point where I could use one of those things. You give me a sewing kit right now and tell me to sew a button back onto my shirt, I can't do it.
So she does make her suit after Pat explicitly tells her she should stay away from the staff. She can't do this. It's too dangerous. Brainwave is far too. She still thinks Starman's her dad, and Brainwave kind of accepts that possibility when he hears it from her. But he doesn't actually know that though. He's hearing it in her head. So he's like, "Oh, that's your father, maybe. Oh, interesting." That said, though, even Pat by the end of the episode is kind of like, I mean, I guess it's possible, but he doesn't think it. He's kind of like, okay, maybe.
I'll just play along with it for now.
Yeah, I'm not expecting it to be. I feel like there's something more interesting. Although I do think it's very fascinating that Ted Knight was name dropped in the creation of the staff. It wasn't. I felt like the history of that, like, or how many Starmen there had been, was going to be a bit more vague, or there wasn't any before this one kind of thing. You know,
yeah.
I wasn't expecting it to be like this. Oh, there's already been previous generations. This isn't just a.
This is more interesting.
So no, I appreciated that. I will say I think I'm definitely into the show after episode 2. I feel a bit more confident saying that I think I like it.
Yeah, me too. There's still a couple of moments that feel really weird to me.
Oh sure.
There was actually like one or two moments here where the pacing felt completely strange. Near the start, you have the montage of Pat doing the training in the robot, and and it felt like this was, okay, over the course of 2 weeks, whatever, doing this training, every day he was doing the next bit. And then it's like the next morning and they're still, her mother's only just finding out about the cut on her head. I'm like, wait, what?
I'm going to go out on a limb here and say that montage is not going to be in the CW cut. I think that's why it feels weird. Actually, on that, it's just based on one of the comments from YouTube, the stuff that wasn't in last week's episode, at least the main bulk of it anyway, was the stuff with the sort of the bitchy mean girl when she first meets her in the hallway. I think that was mostly not in the CW cut. I think
we predicted that one.
I can't remember if we did or not, but someone in the comments pointed out that stuff felt, or at least they watched the CW cut and that was the one thing we talked about that felt completely alien from them. Yeah, so No, it's interesting to see what's there and what's not. That little montage on its own does actually feel like it could have been put elsewhere in the episode, and it would not feel too out of place somewhere else. But
yeah, it was just because it comes right after they get home for the night, and then she goes off to bed or whatever, and then we get this montage of him training with the robot, and it's like 3 or 4 bits of fixing it and trying to make it work.
The fact is, though, is he does have the head injury from when he gets hit in it, because when he's in the suit, he gets because I wouldn't call it a robot because it doesn't function on its own.
It's a mech suit.
It's a mech suit, yeah. But he he gets like a head injury because he punches himself. It's one of the funny moments is when he punches himself with a fist because he's seen why it won't fire and then it fires in his face. You can see it coming, but it's amusing all the same. But because one of the jokes is that both him and Courtney both have they're both a little bit beat up because she's got the head wound and he's got this big sort of like scrape in his face. And the joke of this morning breakfast scene is that they're both sort of like, oh, I'm fine. Oh, I fell downstairs. Yeah, I also fell down the basement stairs. And they're doing this little comedy bit, which for the most part was delightful. And this is actually, I think, why I think I'm into this show, is that these bits could be annoying. And I think the fact that they're not and are actually enjoyable for the most part is why I feel like I might like the show.
I'm finding the son to be the litmus test of this here, in that I feel like, okay, his comedy and brand of what he's doing there is very indicative of whether or not I should be into this. If he was annoying me, I feel like, right, that's it. I know what I'm not going to enjoy in this show. Whereas he's consistently actually quite funny and making me laugh. Yeah,
I mean, Courtney leaves her pancakes. He's like, oh, jailhouse rules, and takes her pancakes. Which, I mean, I've never heard that expression, or that's the rule is in jails that if someone leaves their food, someone else gets it. Never occurred to me, but
sounds plausible.
I'll take his word for it. So yeah, I think that's, and there's little quirky things in the humor here or there that I was sort of noticing throughout the episode. I'm like, yeah, I think this is why I'm into this, beyond just the core superheroics of it working, because the core superheroics are fine, like they function.
They're very
well
standard
enough
right now.
But they're not annoying, and S.T.R.I.P.E the mech suit does look good. They've got a practical version of it. Obviously, when it's moving around, it's not practical, but there is a practical version that he's getting in and out of. So the doors are opening, he's coming out, and it looks good standing there.
I agree. That first time when he gets out of it, when they get back on, oh, that's a real thing.
Yeah, I actually knew it was a real thing. I mean, it looks like a real thing on the show, but I saw a set photo of like not him, but like a crew guy who was sort of just sitting there, kind of posing with it.
See, I hadn't seen that, so it'd all been in action up to this point. So I thought, okay, it's a CGI thing. That's fine, whatever. They'll just keep it out of view when they get back, and then it climbs out of it, and all of a sudden it's clearly a real thing. This is cool.
And to be fair, the CG on S.T.R.I.P.E I think looks substantially better than a lot of the CG that we saw last episode.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, like compared to, I think Grundy's a pretty fair comparison from last episode in terms of the big aesthetic of them. This looks significantly better. And
there's probably 2 reasons for that. One is that it's easier to do like a solid object or like a metal or like a material like that than it is to do a flesh, a living creature, convincingly. And 2, I think S.T.R.I.P.E is going to be around for at least a long time, if not the whole show. So therefore, it's worth to have their models for that, and the computer's probably better. They probably spent more time on it.
No, that makes sense. I think it's also notable that we're talking about that section that feels like that might be cut for CW, that training montage.
Mm-hmm.
Also, noticeably the worst I felt it looked at any point. Almost like they knew, oh, well, this bit's gonna get cut for half the audience anyway, so we won't put as much time into that sequence.
It's funny because it feels like, you could take it out and you wouldn't lose too much. Although the breakfast scene with him being injured wouldn't make as much sense. I guess you just explain that as, maybe you just shorten it. Maybe it's just going to be shortened in the. Maybe
you just do one little bit and him doing the first aid kit. But that was the thing for me when I was watching it. It was like multiple bits, the first aid kit, then he was going back out, and it felt like, it was broad daylight when he was doing this outside.
Honestly, that's the only thing that makes the timing of it weird, because it feels like it's during the day. See if it had been in nighttime still, it's okay, this was just later that night before breakfast.
Yeah, the impression I got was it was like, okay, it was first thing in the morning that he was doing it like multiple days. But now I'm like, I guess this was all over the space of like an hour and a half. I don't know.
Yeah, the way it is, I guess, like, okay, maybe it's summer, it gets light at like 5 a.m. He went out there at 6 for an hour, came back and started making breakfast. that's kind of the timeline of what it had to
Yeah.
be. But regardless, so he goes to the gym as well because he's like, and actually, this is one of these things that should maybe be annoying if it wasn't played just right. But the running gag that's interesting in this episode, where Crusher keeps stealing his food because he keeps trying to eat, like, I think first he's got like a burrito or something, and then later on at the open house at the school, which I think is just parent teacher night. I was confused as to what they were calling open house.
What that is.
Yeah,
because and it's not like any parent teacher night that I'm familiar with.
Yeah, I was expecting because I mentioned an open house. I'm like, okay, why does her mum, who's a doctor, have an open house? What's happening here? And then I was like, oh wait, no, it's a school thing, and they're at the school. Okay, whatever. Terminology that's just alien to us clearly, and this, I mean, I assume this is completely a thing, and we just don't know about it. But
I mean, I assume so. I'm willing to give him the benefit of the doubt on this.
Yeah. But he's going to eat a cookie at one point. He goes to the buffet table. And he's like, "Oh, a cookie! I'll have a cookie." And this Crusher Crusher just grabs it out. He's like, "No, none of this. This is poison. No, you kill yourself with this." You
started a commitment today.
What? It just ends in Luke Wilson going, "That man's crazy." Oh dear. I just that stuff was mostly working for me, and I think those are the things where if I was going to be annoyed by the show, those are the things that wouldn't. I guess my only concern is that, if this is successful enough to get a season 2, I wonder how much of it also airing in the CW gives it that, and therefore does it shift to be more CW? Because that was, we don't know how early they knew this, admittedly, but at least from our perspective, the decision to put it also in CW came fairly late in the sense that they'd already shot it. They're definitely already been written at the very least. So I would be a little minor concerned that maybe season 2 would be a bit more aimed at CW, just because.
What's interesting is this feels like something we have a very obvious comparison to with Supergirl.
Yeah, no.
Yeah, with the first season obviously being on CBS, was it? I think it was.
Yeah, and not that I really like CBS, but it did noticeably feel different to what the rest of the show has kind of become.
By the time we shift over to season 2 and we move, everything, it's like, okay, it's a CW show now.
Yeah, and it wasn't like night and day from episode 1. It was kind of like a gradual realization, just noticing things pile up and just these little things that were changing over time, and
just a shifting direction. And I'm hoping that even if it does get renewed, and they know from the start they're going into on the CW, the fact that CW are not presumably have any say in the writing of it, or they haven't got someone where they can come down and go, these are the things that are going to happen. Maybe that makes it feel the way it does now and just leaves it as it is, and it's just a happy coincidence that CW get to air it.
So just to sort of tackle the rest of the plot then, so it took a little bit of stretching my believability here that he didn't see her face properly in the scene from last episode, because
I guess it's the light from the staff that
obscures her. Yeah, because he picks up the ID, and even when Pat says to her like, "Oh, he knows who you are," and she's like, "Oh, it was dark." I'm like, "It's not dark. I could see your face the whole time. What are you talking about?"
Yeah, I'm guessing it's more. She was always holding the staff kind of in front of us. The glare from the staff just kind of obscured it enough, which is just about plausible enough, I think.
I mean, I'll go with it. Honestly, I'm happy with it because I really liked at the open house where he was aware that someone was watching him, and he could sort of censor, and he's looking because she's looking for him because she's trying to find out who this brainwave guy is in the context of the town. He's trying to find out who this star person is in the context.
And he knows roughly that it's a girl at the school.
Yeah, based on what happened to his son last episode. So there's this kind of game of cat and mouse as he's kind of looking for her, and they're sort of darting in between the crowd, and they straight up have a face to face. And once it became clear that this showdown was going to happen, I'm like, well, I'm not expecting him to die this early or be taken out, but still, clearly something's going to delay him intervening or coming after her constantly for a while. And of course, it's because he essentially is into a coma when.
Yeah, because he knows who she is. He knows her identity. After that point, it's like, okay, he has to be taken off the table for the foreseeable future, at least. Yeah,
because he straight up says he's going to murder her mother, and we have that moment where this is what convinces Pat to, no, you're the kid, I'm the adult, I'm going to go and take this on with the robot. And
this is one of those lines where I laughed, because she goes, you had a kid sidekick before. He goes, that was a different time. It's like, yeah, like the mid-90s?
Not even the mid... Well, It depends when he started, I suppose. But I mean, it was
Well,
10
he
years
was
ago.
15 at the start, and then it was Joel McHale by the end.
Yeah.
So probably a bit longer than the mid-90s.
No, he's Luke Wilson by the end. It wasn't Joe McHale by the end. I mean,
No,
Starman was Joe McHale by the end.
Yeah. I mean, it's Starman who was 15 when
okay.
Pat became his sidekick.
Fair enough. I thought it was Luke Wilson who was 15.
No, I'm pretty because he was the adult sidekick to the kid.
Okay. All right. So now he's even more of an adult sidekick to the kid.
It got worse because she's also 15 now.
Yeah, she's 15 now. So she makes this choice after her mother comes in to see her and thanks her for trying with Pat. Because they've got this secret, it feels like they're kind of getting along to everyone else, like they're in cahoots or something. And it kind of this moment where after she has that conversation with her mum, she's like, no, I can't let Pat do this alone. She takes out the suit that she's made because she's not worn it yet. And we get this sort of, and as much as I was saying the CG was rough last episode, the one thing that wasn't rough was her and the staff. They seem to spend more time in that, or they put more money into it, whatever. They're clearly prioritizing our heroes and how they look, because those are the things we're going to see the most often. Those are the things that are going to have the most lasting impact, yada, yada, yada. So she flies in, and Pat's getting his ass kicked. Brainwaves throwing cars back at him and crushing him with cars, and Stargirl comes in and he says, I'm Stargirl and that's my sidekick. And Pat does help by flashing light at him, because Stargirl, like, he's basically giving her a stroke, there on the ground.
She's like bleeding out of her ears. It's pretty rough.
Yeah, but it's just enough that she's able to grab the staff again and hold it up to his face, and because he's trying to do whatever, it makes his brain overload and he goes into a coma. Which and because it's notable, we kind of gloss over the scene with the son, because he's trying to ask him questions about the girl who attacked him and beat up him and his friends, and he's clearly trying to and this is clearly something he's done before. The implication of this scene is this is something he does every so often, is that he's trying to gauge if his son's getting his abilities too, and he's expecting it. He's expecting his son to eventually have his telepathy and telekinesis. So he's every so often he's like, "What am I thinking, son? Look into my eyes. What am I thinking?" So it is kind of cheesy, and it ties into other villain stuff. Wizard seems to be the councilman who we see him at his house with his family. Icicle shows up at the end, of course, to a rockin' pop song as he enters into the building. They've got a secret lair, the Injustice, because that's the thing. He explains to Courtney who Pat does. Explains the Injustice Society and all these things. And that was the other time he said it's a different time, when she says, like, most of the names, what the hell is it? It was a different time. I'm like, 10 years ago. You keep saying this like it's the 40s. It was 10 years ago.
That's the thing. If this was traditional JSA and we were talking about 40s, maybe even the 60s, I'd be like, yeah, sure, I'll buy it. But we're talking late 80s to early 2000s at best.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's hell, like, given how they fudge the ages, there's a chance that this is still post 9/11, what he's talking about here, this time that he's discussing.
I mean, I'm giving them a benefit of the doubt that the naming of things was around for a little bit before that, but 10 years ago is when they all
2010,
finished. Yeah, it's 2010.
So even if it was technically, again, given the ages of the actors, it's probably before then, but sometimes they like to fudge these things, so it's entirely possible that they've only been together for like 8 years, say, at that point.
Yeah, how old's McHale these days?
McHale's in his early 40s now, but...
Right. So, let's say 35 years, minus to 25 years he was doing it. Let's say, okay, he'd enjoy the Injustice. That puts you about maybe early 90s that they started.
And hold on. This is assuming that the Injustice Society was around at near the start of when... The GSA.
So at best we're looking at early 90s. At very best.
Yeah, the Injustice Society could be post 9/11. That could be much later. We don't know when they formed.
No, it's true.
We have no basis for that.
You make a very good point. They went out of the way to get like evil team portraits painted and stuff, though, didn't they?
They did. They got full cheese with it.
I love that they commissioned someone to paint their evil team.
They've got Grundy in a cell for a rainy day, and it also turns out that Courtney's mum's boss,
Barbara.
Barbara, sorry, yes, that's what I was trying to think of. That, you know, her boss, who again we get one scene of just him being kind of this kooky, like villainous boss who doesn't like her ideas.
It was really weird because when I was watching, I was like, this is definitely getting cut for the CW. This particular scene, but then surely they can't, given the that's the only context we have for him at the end.
Yeah, I feel like that has to be in there. I mean, he's definitely a goofier character. I actually almost felt like, you know what, if this was 15 years ago, Tim Curry would play in this role. They feel like
I can totally see that.
They want Tim Curry for this, but he's too old now and he probably doesn't want to do it. So they've got this guy. And he's fine. He's not bad, but
He's no Tim Curry. But I mean, a few people are.
I could see the Tim Curry-ness of the, just, you know, with that little beard that he's got and the moustache.
Yeah, I can see it.
So they introduce him, and again, there's just a small little bit of details of some of these new friends who, just from the posters, you know, are going to be more important later. And, you know, the idea that the one girl's like Skypes with her mum at lunch, and
she deserves to be sitting at the losers table, frankly.
And her dad is also works with Barbara. So there's a lot of kids. So you're getting that small town vibe where like both of her parents are in some way connected to two other things in the town, and then so on and so on. And then you get the other girl who just kind of gets weirded out because Courtney's kind of staring for a second and tells her off for it. So they're just sort of building those characters up a little bit. I assume at some point those parents are going to get into danger, and that's going to be what maybe drives them to help Courtney when the time comes. But I like that there's a slow build here, but we've not like shoved them down our faces so far. It's just been one scene really per episode. I guess maybe two if you count a little bit at the end, the open house stuff, but you can sort of see, you know, them around. But
I mean, they're there, but we don't do anything with them, so I'm not sure I even would count that.
No. So yes, I mean, Skyping with your mum at lunch is maybe the single most nerdy thing I've ever seen.
It's really sad
in my life. I've never
and then being excited because your dad can join in for a group lunch conference. I mean, it somehow plays a lot better right now in the current climate than this would have done 3 months ago. Like if this had been aired right after they filmed it, we'd be like, what is this bullshit?
I think what gets me about it though is it's one thing for her to do it, but the fact that she's so happy about it, it's the fact that she's so excited about it. It does. I feel like Johns isn't shying away because Johns did write this episode. In fact, he may have written the whole season. I can't remember if he actually is credited for all the episodes, but I did notice his name in the writing credit for this one, and I feel like he's not shying away from letting some of the characters feel like they are comic booky, and that they've got this thing, because I can totally see this in a comic book and it playing not as weird in a comic, because comics are comics and not a TV show where you're actually seeing this happen. Yeah, this is probably one of those
things that doesn't translate to the screen as well, because we look at this and be like, this is just weird. No one does this.
But I kind of don't hate that it's not shying away from that stuff though. So we'll see how that progresses as we go. Like just weird little things that feel like they're more comic booky than they are like maybe TV friendly. But I think I'm fairly optimistic about at least season 1 of this show after the first 2 episodes, but mainly just because all the things that should be annoying me, or would have the potential to annoy me if the casting wasn't quite right, or if the writing wasn't quite hitting the right notes, it'd be bugging me. And the villains, well, they are definitely cheesy. They feel, again, cheesy in a comic booky way where it always feels very intentional. I never get the impression from Brainwave, or even the small glimpse of Icicle at the end where he sort of breathes the just a little bit of the cold breath out as he's talking. I never get the impression that they don't completely know 100% that they're doing a cheesy villain. Like, it always feels like, no, they want a cheesy villain that they're going to take seriously enough to be a threat to the hero, but not, we're not taking this too seriously.
Yeah, and when your hero is a 15-year-old girl with very little experience, you don't need to be too much of a threat for it to work. You can get away with being pretty cheesy still. Yeah.
So I think my assessment of this would still be that it feels like a show from a network TV era when network TV could occasionally still be pretty good. That's still my assessment after 2 episodes. And how I feel.
I'm enjoying it. And like I say, I've missed having a show like this. This feeling, like that good networky feeling. It's been a long time, really, since we've had a lot of that consistently.
It's kind of interesting that eventually we had to get something from a streaming service that actually felt more like that than any of the stuff that the networks actually put out now, or at least in terms of quality. I mean,
Well, I think it's notable where they looked at it and went, "What's not being done in the market with superhero stuff right now?" And it's, oh, that traditional network feel that people like that isn't being done anywhere else. We can do that.
yeah, and at least as of now, and I wouldn't even be mad if they do eventually, but they're not falling into that CW formula of, oh, we've got someone sitting at the computer talking to her as she's doing stuff. And I mean, yeah, Pat's the sidekick, but Pat's going to be suiting up from time to time in that robot, that mech suit. So I mean, like he's going to be getting in there. He's not Felicity or or Win or whoever.
Yeah. Pick whoever you want from Flash. They rotate through them.
Well, yeah, it got to the point where they had like 5 characters who would all be on the computer talking to Barry, even though like 5 out of 6 of them had superpowers themselves and could come and help.
Literally, you had at points Caitlin, Iris, Cisco, Ralph, all there, just
one of the Harrys.
staring. Oh yeah, one of the Harrys, of course, just looking at the computers.
Yep. So we're not falling into that trap, at least as of yet, which I do appreciate.
Yeah.
So, and I'll be curious to see what they do with Brainwave's son. Like,
because it makes clear that he definitely doesn't have his powers yet, but maybe. I almost thought at the end, when he goes and visits his dad, and he's in the coma, and they're like, "Oh, the only person who could have saved him was him." And I thought, the anger of what had happened, maybe for him would kind of trigger something.
Yeah, I can see a few possibilities here. I can see Brainwave actually being awake on the inside, with his powers, and maybe communicating with his son at some point, and that's how his son finds out about his powers.
Because he can definitely project his thoughts as well.
Oh yeah, we've heard that. Yeah, because he's talked to several people that way so far.
Right, exactly. So he could project some information perhaps to his son.
Alternatively, I can totally see the end of any episode could easily be the cliffhanger of his son. Of what's his name here, Henry. I mean, they call him Junior, I suppose, in the episode. We can call him Junior if you want, I suppose.
Yeah.
But he, I could totally see a tease of the end of the season, even if not any random episode, being him clearly either hearing something with his mind or moving something with his mind by accident. Having that moment of like, whether it's the first time he experiences it or the first time we see that his powers have triggered. He can do it now. And then even if they're the exact same, maybe they'll be slightly different, because sometimes that happens with superheroes. Is they'll mutate a little bit.
Yeah. Oh, we'll have to wait and see. But I agree that definitely feels like an easy cliffhanger at some point, and not one that I'll be annoyed by. But it's like, that'll work.
And they could totally swerve us where he becomes a hero. He could totally become someone who wants to fight against his villainous father, or the injustice.
Absolutely could. Again, that's a story beat we've seen many a time. But again, just in principle, that doesn't annoy me. By okay, we're going to do that thing that you've seen, because it's not a trope. It's more just a solid character idea.
Yeah, and I don't actually know a whole lot about Brainwave from the comics. Admittedly, I don't think I've encountered much of Brainwave.
No, these are all. I mean, Icicle and Grundy aside, they're all fairly obscure villains we're dealing with right now, I think.
And what I kind of like about this is that there's not a lot of Jeff Johns comics right now, and one of the things that I love about Jeff Johns comics is he'll happily bring in these obscure things and give them new life and introduce a whole new audience of people to them. And I kind of love that he's doing that just through a TV show now. But he's still. It's not like this is characters that he used heavily in something. At least as far as I know, I've not read the entire JSA run, but you have, and you're not recognizing a lot of these.
I don't. I mean, they very well might show up at points, but not in like super memorable long term ways that I can really remember who these guys are.
So I'm kind of just excited by the idea that I'm still getting that those Johns elements just in another format. And I think I definitely feel it feels Johnsy at times, and I wonder if the more he gets comfortable writing a TV show, if we start to establish what Johns in TV form feels like, to the point where that has its own feel too, where we can start to recognize this feels like a Johns TV show. Like
it's really interesting, because obviously superheroes are his passion, DC in particular, but film and that was his background. He came up through film. So him having this TV desire to translate his other passion of comics onto the screen feels very obvious.
Yeah, I mean, this is not a super obscure trivia, but it's worth mentioning for people who don't know that he actually was an assistant to Richard Donner at one point, who of course directed Superman. So
Yeah, and I think it's worth noting there are points in this episode where the music was going, like when Courtney was flying in at one point, that the music it wasn't the same. It wasn't like doing Superman themes, but it evoked the same feeling as from very specifically that Superman movie.
yeah, I think he wants to create a show that feels like it belongs almost in the Silver Age, despite the fact that it's clearly set present day with all these other things. And then also worth mentioning that the other assistant that worked for Richard Donner around the same time, who became friends with Jeff Johns at that time, was none other than Kevin Feige, who what was he doing these days? Oh yeah, he's running the biggest superhero movie empire in the planet. So the idea that Johns could maybe somehow end up doing, because we almost thought he was going to at one point, but then of course everything kind of fell through and things changed. And
Warner shied away from that.
Yeah, but maybe you can do it with a bunch of TV shows, or at least just run one great TV show. And obviously, I'm not saying it's great yet. It's not there, but it can become that.
But I'm on record multiple times as saying, as a medium, I prefer TV to film. As a whole, I think the storytelling potential long term is a lot higher. So I will take one fantastic, let's pretend this gets to that level, one fantastic TV show over him running a universe of 10 to 20 films. I would rather have the TV show.
I think between those two, I would say I prefer just one good TV show that runs a nice lengthy, strong number of seasons.
Yeah.
I don't think I would not definitively say either way that I prefer film or TV as a medium, because I think they're just two different beasts. I think one is where you have the better serialized form. So I'd say I prefer TV shows to like sequels to a movie for the most part. But I don't think I could compare standalone great films to TV shows, because they're just completely different animals.
Oh, they are. I just mean in the sense of, in consuming my stories, I have a tendency to prefer long form storytelling.
All right, 70-year-old granny, my stories. My stories are on. Tell my stories.
Yes, very good.
Anyway, is there anything in the episode myself plot-wise that we've glossed over? I don't, nothing's springing to mind. But if there is anything, by all means, let us know in the comments. Anything that we've not talked about, and we can, of course, be back next week. It sounds like we're continuing with this, so we'll be back for episode 3 next week and see where we go from there.
Just one thing that I did notice.
Yeah, sure.
We had a CWS title card this time with a little music sting.
We did. I mean, honestly, yeah, that could just be a pilot thing where they had a fancier one for the pilot, and then this is the one that we're going to have every episode now, which isn't even that weird for TV shows. Like, often the first episode, because it was made before they make any title cards, they end up having something that feels a bit different. So I guess that makes sense. So yeah, we'll see. But I wonder if that's the one concession, is that they couldn't have their minute-long, like, fancy opening title sequence because it was going to CW. That was the one concession they had to make.
6 seconds at best.
But I mean, that's fine. Even though I really like Doom Patrol's one, but that's whatever. But hey, that is episode 2 of Stargirl. We're kind of digging it. It's kind of the pulpy comic book show that we kind of want, and hopefully it keeps sort of nudging in that direction, and we really grow to care about the story over the course of the season. But I do like that they're setting up the Injustice gang, or the Injustice Society, sorry, as the
Injustice gang
season-long plot. I'm sure that's from something. I didn't just make that up. There's a reason why I said that by accident. No. But anyway, that's episode 2. So let us know what you think in the comments. Please do like if you're on YouTube. Very important. And even if you're already subscribed, it does help us out a lot. It lets YouTube's algorithm know that we think we're worth watching. It'll share us out to other people who are interested in similar content. So please do that. But you can, of course, also support us financially over at patreon.com/MailFuzzTV for as little as $1 per month. Show your support that way. Keep all the content coming. And, so it's always good. It's always good to see comments and likes and things like that, because it lets us know that people care about the shows we're covering. So please do that. But otherwise, that is us. Get us on Twitter at mailed_fuzz for channel updates. Thank you once again for watching or listening. We always appreciate it. Keep watching TV, guys. Have you got any vanilla?